if we do not support these 40 countries with money and institutions that they govern themselves, then we will not be better prepared, but be maybe worse prepared, because we now have also the info and then pandemic against us, where, let's say, everything that we do is basically questions by a social media war, which will make it way more difficult to organize a response towards a future pandemic.
You questioning me? Don't question me.
This is where we currently are.
The other issue, as we are with the virus, is communication and disinformation. And this is such a complex issue. There are many media people here who exactly know what I'm speaking about. This is really the intervention in the beginning of a pandemic. So there are two interventions that are really efficient before we have a drug or vaccine. This is diagnostic testing, and then it's political decision-making. And once this political decision-making is influenced and contorted by disinformation and propaganda, we are lost. And there are roles that are not being fulfilled by the media themselves. They really have to look in the mirror. And there is another role that's sometimes ignored a little bit, which is the role of science itself.
So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
So we shouldn't have anybody who has some academic degree talking about the heart of the issue in the middle of a pandemic. We have to address the institutions of science to make some selection, to set up panels of experts who are really experts and who wouldn't push into the media, but who are somehow qualified to summarize the state of knowledge. And this can only happen via the institutions of science. These institutions have to offer this function to society. And these institutions of science, they are actually consisting of scientists, of top scientists, and it's really about being a little bit less opportunistic as a scientist, being a little bit more of service to society.
Good luck with that.
These two entities have essentially been partners on the COVID vaccine, but now they are in a battle over one of the key patents behind it. And this afternoon, we learned from Dr. Francis Collins, the head of the NIH, that it looks like they may take this to court. He told Reuters, quote, "I think Moderna has made a serious mistake here in not providing the kind of co-inventorship credit to people who played a major role in the development of the vaccine that they're now making a fair amount of money off of." Clearly, he says this is something that legal authorities are going to have to figure out. But we just heard back from Moderna telling us, quote, "We do not agree that NIAID scientists co-invented claims to the vaccine sequence itself. Only Moderna scientists came up with the sequence for the mRNA used in our vaccine." And Mel, it's not just bragging rights at stake here. This is a vaccine that could draw up to $18 billion in sales this year, up to $22 billion in sales next year.
The NIH continues to refuse to voluntarily divulge the names of scientists who receive royalties and from which companies. Over the period of time from 2010 to 2016, 27,000 royalty payments were paid to 1,800 NIH employees. We know that not because you told us, but because we forced you to tell us through the Freedom of Information Act. Over $193 million was given to these 1,800 employees. Can you tell me that you have not received a royalty from any entity that you ever oversaw the distribution of money in research grants?
Well, first of all, let's talk about royalties.
That's the question. No, that's the question. Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know? Why don't you reveal how much you've gotten and from what entities? The NIH refuses. Look, we ask them. The NIH, we ask them whether or not, who got it and how much. They refuse to tell us. They sent it redacted. Here's what I want to know. It's not just about you. Everybody on the vaccine committee, have any of them ever received money from the people who make vaccines? Can you tell me that? Can you tell me if anybody on the vaccine approval committees ever received any money from people who make the vaccines?
Soundbite number one, are you going to let me answer a question? Okay, so let me give you some information. First of all, according to the regulations, people who receive royalties are not required to divulge them even on their financial statement, according to the Bayh-Dole Act. So let me give you some example. From 2015 to 2020, the only royalties I have was my lab and I made a monoclonal antibody for use in vitro reagent that had nothing to do in patients. And during that period of time, my royalties ranged from $21 a year to $700 a year, and the average per year was $191.46.
It's all
Get that,
redacted, and you can't get any information on the 1800
Senator Paul,
scientists.
your time is
I'm
So
long.
we
giving it
want
to
to
you,
know
Senator.
whether or
Senator
not
Paul.
people got money from the people who made the manufacturing.
Senator Paul, your
vaccine.
time is long over expired. I gave you an additional 2.5 minutes. The witness has responded. We are going to move on.